Welcome to today's live. You've chosen a topic, the benefit of flow states. So we're going to dive into that today. And we're going to change the format a little bit. I was discussing a topic and then answer your questions. Just going to go straight into the questions because I think they're going to offer more depth for you. And it just seems a better way of doing it. But before I dive into the questions that you've answered, we've got 3 great questions this week. I'm going to say that below, there's a free guide for you to download right away. It's our 4 simple steps to self-care, and it's basically introduction to stage 1 of our 5-stage path to personal mastery. And the reason it's below and kind of introducing it today is because it focuses on the key elements to self-care practices, as well as flow state, introduction to flow states. So it's below for you to download. It'll show you, talk to you, go into flow in more detail, and it's going to show you how to do mobility and yoga to help ease chronic pain. It's going to show you how to shift into success mindset. You'll learn how to get the best night's sleep you've had in ages. You'll learn 3 quick wins on how to clean up your nutrition for better health, and you'll learn how to use your breath to feel calmer. It's free for you to download, completely free. Just follow the instructions and you'll get it immediately with a few extra bonuses. So today, I open it up to you and you've kind of responded. Thank you very much for your responses. I'm going to dive straight into the question. So the first question you had was, what is flow? And that's a great question. That was from Karen. And so simply being, flow is where you feel your best, feel and perform your best. It's those moments where you're completely absorbed in the moment. And there are some fundamental characteristics of flow, which are defined by the Flow Genome Project. And so I'm going to break those down for you. And the acronym STIR. So you have selflessness, S. And selflessness is simply about your sense of self vanishes. You know, that inner negative chat that you have, what we all have, that goes quiet. And so we're simply immersed in the moment, in that present moment. T is for timelessness. So time is distorted. Typically, you might be working for 2 hours and it'll feel like 10 minutes. And it can go the other way. 5 minutes can be like a few hours, and depending on the situation. But that's probably the most common trait or characteristic of a flow state. So that's T, timelessness. E is effortlessness. So you're just doing the task, whatever it is you're doing, you're completely immersed in it. And you've got this, the fancy term is autotelic. You're just doing it because you love it. And it could be any experience, which I'm going to cover in a minute. And then R is for richness. So information richness. And one of my favorite areas of flow or peak states is the information, the kind of deep knowing, ideas start to link up on a small level. For me, that could be like, I'll be working on my computer and then I'll go out for a bike ride. And so during that bike ride, all of a sudden I can get some ideas and I think, oh yeah, that makes sense and that makes sense. Things start to link up. And that's kind of the fundamental characteristics of the flow state. And over 100 years of research shows that those very attributes of flow maximizes motivation, learning, creativity, cooperation, and overall well-being. And that these are crucial to success in the 21st century. And like I said, flow, that is flow. And how do what is flow? Flow can be broken up into as many different experiences. It's not one experience. And there's a spectrum. And so you can get micro flow all the way through to macro flow experiences. And so an example of a micro flow would be, you could be going for a walk on the beach and the clarity of the sky might stand out to you. You could be driving to work and the green lights are just, you're just an effortless into work. It could be where your day to day is just running so smoothly. It could be that run that your run that you have, or the exercise that you do. You're just really small moments of just entering into a nice state. It could be a breath practice. It could be meditation. They're micro elements. Now, macro flow are often profound, life-changing experiences. It could be that holiday that you went on, that adventure holiday, or any holiday that you just, I wouldn't say it's a holiday sitting next to the beach. It'd be a holiday where you maybe go to a festival, transformational festival. It could be you go trekking in the mountains. It could be a deep sexual experience. It could be a music festival. It could be, there's so many, it could be a psychedelic experience. Flow typically is more of a high performing experience, mindset in sport, in music, in art, a lot of the creative arts. That when the best work is created is in the moments of flow. The other experiences I mentioned were peak states, and they offer very similar experiences. And then the three major benefits that I wanted to kind of share with you today of flow. One, incredible productivity. So thinking about your day to day, you could be, if you structure your day well, you can get, 2 hours of your work can tick off all of your to-do lists for that day. And I think kind of the lockdown and this year has shown that, this has been known for a long time, but I think the mainstream has started to realize this, that 8-hour days you're not productive for 8 hours. You're probably productive for 2 to 4 hours maximum. The rest of the time is just pointless meetings. It's wasted time, but we're told we have to do certain hours because there's a contract that you have to live up to, for example. So incredible productivity. The second benefit I want to mention is a deep connection with others. So that could be in a team experience, in a corporate experience, that could be in a sporting experience, that could be in a festival experience. Again, many different environments to show up. But it's where a connection to something bigger, a connection to not just you, but to other people around you. Powerful, healing, connecting experience. And this is why flow is in a way trying to be used to help solve some of the difficult situations and problems that we are facing in today's world, to come together with connected minds and connected ideas rather than just working on individuals. And the third massive benefit to flow states is that it resets your nervous system. Flow is physiological. So lots of things happen and stack up in our body. When we're in a stress state, we have stress hormones. Our body is in a state of fight, flight, freeze. So it's getting ready to take action. In a flow state, all those chemicals get flushed through, and our heart coherence, our brain and heart sync up. We're just in an optimal state. And so it's an amazing reset for our nervous system. You think 21st century normal is sat behind a desk, fibrillation of stress because we're false light and we're just stuck in poor posture. We're not breathing right, all those kind of things. And so flow helps reset all of that. So I hope that answers your question, Karen. That's what flow is. The second question from Tom, how to get into flow? A good question. And kind of really, if you want to get more flow, you're going to need to learn how to struggle better and how to recover better. And that's because there's a flow cycle. So rather than diving into the triggers, I want to kind of show you a cycle first, talk about the cycle first, and then maybe I'll mention a few triggers afterwards. So the flow cycle is 4 stages. And so the first stage is struggle. You need to enter into activity, whatever that activity is. It has to be challenging enough for you to focus, but there's a sweet spot. And so it's called the challenge skills ratio. If it's understimulating, it's not challenging enough, we typically switch off because we get bored. It's not engaging. But if it's the other way, if it's too hard, we switch off because we can't see progression. It's just too difficult. And so there's a sweet spot in between there. And so if your activity needs to be of a certain level of challenge for you to get anywhere near flow. So bear that in mind when you're trying to do something. That could be in a physical, that could be learning a new skill, a martial art, climbing, some kind of body movement. It doesn't have, what you do doesn't really matter. You have to like it, obviously, and you have to be wanting to do it, but also it has to be challenging enough for you to engage in it and to create that focus. And that's why doing things that scare you are so good at getting a flow, because focus follows fear, and it almost forces us into a flow state. And there's a balance to that, of course. Then you've got the release phase. So you have struggle, then you enter release. And I kind of mentioned it earlier, like when I work on a project and I go out on a bike ride, I'm letting go, I'm doing something completely different. What that does is it allows you to come away from stress and ideas start to link up. And that could be on a day level, micro level. It could be where you're working and you use something called the Pomodoro effect or technique, where you work for 20-minute blocks, then you have 5 minutes off completely. You come away from your computer or the project that you're working on, with art, whatever, and you do something completely different. Maybe you do some breath practice. Maybe you do some light movement. Maybe you close your eyes and just get some peace for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And then you come back into your work. So that's the release phase. So 1, 2. The third phase is flow. It's not like we can choose to get into flow. Flow is the byproduct of these practices. And then the fourth phase is recovery. So your nutrition, how well you're eating, and not just, thinking of nutrition as information. It's not just calories. And so what information are you putting into your body? That has a direct effect on inflammation in your body, on stress, how well you recover, your recovery practice such as breath work, such as how well do you sleep, not just how long you sleep, but the quality of your sleep. Recovery is a whole field on its own. So coming back to your question, Tom, how do you get into flow? Focus on how well you engage in struggle, so developing a growth mindset, and how well you recover, bringing attention on the way you use your recovery strategies. And what I see, most people struggle too much and they don't recover well enough. So there are two areas. People often do too much and they don't put much quality onto their recovery practices. So that's how to get into flow. And then the third question from Sophia is, let's have a look, sorry, there it is. How much planning is needed to get into flow? And so I thought that was a really good question. So as I said, there's a flow spectrum. It's not like one, it's so many different experiences. What characterizes a flow is that STIR, the acronym STIR. Remember, selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, and richness. Regards to you can plan flow, you can block flow up into different categories. So you can say daily flow, weekly flow, monthly, seasonal, and annual. And so linking that to the flow spectrum, a daily flow practice would be, for me, would be breath practice. For me, would be doing my bare minimum of movement. For me, it would be cold immersion. So I go in the sea most mornings, cold water swimming. They're examples of my daily flow experiences that get me into flow in the moment, but also allow me to feel flow more often. The more flow you get, the easier flow becomes. Think of the neural pathways, think of all that foundation that's laid in our body. The more you access it, the easier it becomes to access it. So they're my daily. A weekly practice could be where more of a deeper dive. So that might be a bike ride that I go on. I go on a couple of hour bike ride a few times a week. That could be consciously a deeper breath practice where me and Anna practice for an hour. We'll enter into a deeper state of breathing with music, with incense, kind of making it a proper practice. My day-to-day breath work would be, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes here and there. But a deeper experience would be, we use an hour where we kind of set the scene, the music and the incense, and we enter into a breath practice to get into a deeper state. A monthly practice might be, you might, for example, go away, do something that challenges you that you don't normally do. So if you're someone that likes to exercise hard, you like to feel, push your body, maybe a flow experience for you would be doing something totally different. Maybe learning how to dance, maybe doing a martial art, maybe climbing, maybe doing something that's just kind of physical, but not in the realm of high intensity. And then you can go all the way through to annual practice. It might be you're planning a week-long silent retreat. It might be psychedelic practice. It might be, things are a bigger, deeper experiences. And that's for you to decide for you, but that's kind of an outlay of how much planning do you need. Really, day to day, you come back to day to day, not a lot. It's just self-care practices. And then the bigger the experience, the more planning that needs. So if you're going to go off and do an ayahuasca experience for a week, then you obviously need to plan that, book the time off, you need to pay for it, you need to get yourself ready, the diet, there's a lot of planning involved with that. Whereas your day-to-day is just habits. So I hope that gives some depth to that. Thank you for those questions. And just to remind you that there are 2 guides below. So the first one is the 4 simple steps. And the second guide is how to get into flow. So it's a bit more of a comprehensive introduction to flow and give you some tips and hints and a planner for you to begin to plan some of these practices and some deeper ideas of what you can do. So thank you for your questions. Thank you for Thank you for connecting, and thank you for adding your contributions, because this is the real reason why I'm doing it. Kind of really start to build interaction between us and this community, and you're on our email list, so we want to help you and be a two-way thing. So thank you again. Don't forget to download the guides below, and see you next week for a new episode, a new live and a new Q&A. So have a good weekend and see you next week.